Welcome to Pixel Realms, the podcast where two geeks dive headfirst into the gaming multiverse. They're basically like Gandalf in a headset, minus the wisdom and magic. So, grab your snacks and level up your patience. Pixel Realms, where the pixels are real, but the knowledge, not so much.
Welcome to Pixel Realms. This is episode 19. We are talking about licensed video games today. We're your hosts, Mark and Joe. And yeah, we're going to start off with the news, which
I think it's all your news.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So a couple things this week. Warner Brothers announced that they are shutting down 3 game studios, the big one being Monolith Productions. I don't know Player First Games personally, and there's also Warner Brothers, their San Diego building or department or whatever is closing. And so supposedly, I don't know if this is 100% true. You know, obviously when you see stuff on the internet, you have to take things with a grain of salt. But the Suicide Squad game that came out was, I guess they're saying somewhere around the line of like a $200 million failure. So I'm guessing, and they're saying that that's one of the core reasons why they canceled the Monolith was doing a Wonder Woman game, and so they canceled that, and then shortly after, I guess, announced the closure of the studio.
Which is unfortunate because a Wonder Woman game would have been, I think, could have been really, really cool if it's done right.
Oh yeah, definitely. And Monolith, if I'm not mistaken, they're the ones that did the Shadow.
Yeah, I think they're the same studio.
Shadow of Mordor. Yeah, they did that, and I believe they were in charge of at least the first Fear. I know there's been a couple Fear games. So
I remember when you sent me this news. It's just my first thing is, how can a company, and I know this is their gaming division, but how can a company like Warner Brothers, who owns an IP for 2 of the biggest comic book characters, Batman and Superman, fail time and time again?
You know, it's crazy, but I mean, I guess in this particular instance, Monolith Games doesn't have a DC title technically in their roster. Like, I'm looking through their game library, Tron 2.0 in 2003, The Matrix Online, which was a short-lived MMO that didn't do super well. Fear, they did do the Condemned games, which are fairly popular horror games. They did Fear and
Condemned
2.
was really, really good. A lot of fun.
And then Guardians of Middle-earth, Shadows of Mordor, and Shadows of War.
Yeah, which are all great and highly acclaimed games. Got repetitive with the second one, but you know, the first one definitely was a brand new kind of thing. The thing that was really cool about that game was the fact that you would have your nemesis, and I thought that was really cool. That, you know, any character in that game could be your nemesis, and then it was going to come kick your ass no matter what you did.
Now, Player First, I looking through, like, trying to figure out what they had done. Apparently, they were very hands-on with the multiverse. I think that's the name of the game, the multiverse game. It was the DC related, like, Smash Brothers style game. You know, it had like Batman in it, but then it had like Bugs Bunny or Shaggy and whatnot. And I thought it was, I had heard a lot of people really enjoyed it, but I'm guessing it just didn't do well for them. I mean,
well, because it came out and it was buggy or they had issues, so they pulled it, then they launched it again. And I don't know. It's again, how can you have all these IPs and fail in the gaming industry?
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's really weird, and
it's not like they're even licensing them, which is the episode that we're going to be covering today. They're not even licensed. They own the licenses to these.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and San Diego's division of Warner Brothers, it just, when I try and look them up, it just kind of diverts to Warner Brothers in general. So I don't know exactly what they've worked on. I think I read before that they helped work on stuff like the newest Mortal Kombat game, etc. But they weren't like, they didn't do the game, you know?
Yeah.
All right. And then the next piece of news, a pretty interesting piece, especially for me and Nintendo fans, and especially Pokemon fans. So the new game that is coming out this year, Pokemon Legends ZA, is coming out. They showed off even more gameplay. They have a couple new mechanics in the game. It looks like they're kind of trying to do a mixture of Scarlet and Violet and the Arceus game, where like there's going to be more collectibles and you're running around the world. In the battles, apparently, you control the Pokemon and you control the player. So like before, you would just stand there, issue commands, do the Pokemon does the attack and that whatnot. Now you actually like move the player, and as you move the player, the Pokemon moves too. So there's like I guess like a weird new potentially dodging mechanic.
Yeah.
To help with like the gameplay. It doesn't seem all that groundbreaking, but it's anything Pokemon decides to do new is kind of interesting because Pokemon is very, cookie cutter. They just, copy and paste.
Yeah.
Now the other big part of this is that usually, even though Nintendo only has the Switch, right? Like usually they specifically say coming for the Nintendo Switch, blah 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 blah. Well, they didn't state what console this was coming out for. They just said that it is coming out this year.
Interesting.
So with the April Switch 2 thing that's likely happening, it most likely seems like it's going to either be on both consoles or exclusively Switch 2, because anyone who played Scarlet and Violet knows that the game was a bit buggy, a bit the Switch had trouble, I think, with running the game. So it would make sense with the new things that they're doing with this game, plus what they learned from the last game, that it should be out on the Switch too. We won't know for sure, obviously, until after April. Hell, maybe even April they announced that the Pokemon game's a launch title, which is something they've technically never done. The Pokemon title has never been a launch title for Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, that's the big news from Nintendo, which, I mean, is kind of big, but at the same time, kind of not. I guess it depends on how you see it.
Well, they're also, I think, maybe being a little cautious on announcing anything because of the Switch 2 Direct coming out soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe building all the news towards that.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's pretty much all I've got for the news. And if you don't have anything, Joe, let's just jump right into the topic of licensed video games.
So it's awesome that our news today happened to be with Warner Brothers, because at least we're not going after Ubisoft today. We're going to go after a different developer, a different publisher.
We'll find a reason. Well, I'm sure we'll find a reason.
Oh, of course. With that said, there actually is one title on our list, at least that I have, that is from Ubisoft. Anyways, so today's is about licensed video games, and these are games that either were books, were movies, were comic books, cartoons, whatever, that were licensed and then created a video game with that work. Mm-hmm. And just like we talked about in one of the very first episodes of Pixel Realms, which is video games adapting to movies, movies adapting to video games, etc., this is kind of a twist in a different way. So we're going to list a couple games that are, in our opinion, good licensed video games, and then others that just are not. And we want to start off on the positive note on this episode. So we're going to start from the very beginning, and these aren't in any order by any means. These are just kind of randomly selected video games. But honestly, the first one on the list might arguably be the best one of them, in my personal opinion. That is the Arkham series Batman video games.
I mean, yeah, so I can't fairly judge the games on the quality personally, because I didn't personally play them, but I've seen quite a bit of them, and they all seemed great, other than the very last release that I don't know counts as an Arkham game. I don't think it does, right? The one with the Robin
no, that one, Batgirl. That one does not, I believe.
I didn't think it did.
I can't
I wasn't
remember
sure.
exactly.
Yeah, because I don't even remember. I don't remember the damn name because I'm so terrible at remembering names. But I know it did very badly, coming out. But I definitely don't think it's considered an Arkham Asylum or Arkham quote unquote game.
There was Arkham Asylum, and then there's Arkham City, and then Arkham. I don't remember what the third one's called now.
Is there
No.
one called Shadow? There wasn't one called Shadow, was there?
No. There was also the one
Oh,
where
that was
they
a
changed.
VR. That's VR. That was Meta. They had Meta
Oh,
has a
Shadow, yeah.
Batman game, and I'm pretty sure Shadow is the Meta one. Arkham. When in doubt, Google search
Of
Arkham
course.
series.
Yeah, Arkham Asylum, Arkham City. Then there's Lockdown, Origins, which changed to voice actor.
So
Blackgate, Origins again, and then
the
Arkham
official
Knight.
games. Yeah, so they're the official games are Arkham Asylum, Arkham City. I don't know if Lockdown considers, because I think that's a DLC, because it's
That was a mobile game.
Oh, it's a mobile game, so then it doesn't count. And then there was Origins, which I know some people kind of were like on.
I didn't care
Now,
for it
I
because they
think-
changed the voice of Bruce Wayne Batman, and that I understand why they did it, but it was unnecessary, especially with the passing
Yeah.
of the main actor.
Wait, I thought they kept him in it for the last one. One of the games, they even said that this was like the last game he recorded.
No, Arkham's was like a prequel to all of it. Origins was a prequel to it all.
Okay, all
So
right.
it has Roger Craig. So what was it? Roger Craig Smith voiced him.
Okay. So Arkham Knight, I know that Robin, Nightwing, and Catwoman and all of them are in it. I
Arkham
don't know.
Knight. The biggest issue with Arkham Knight was that it was a bug fest when it first launched.
Yeah.
But eventually it became a very good, solid game. It's just launch was just as one of the very first terribly launched video games that eventually got patched over time. But I think that's when they switched engines for that one. Maybe I'm incorrect on that one. Did they always use the Unreal? Yeah, they always use the Unreal Engine. So never mind. But for whatever reason, I think they might just cram too much into it, and obviously didn't do enough testing to make sure it was functional. But it was on everything was a
Gotham
disaster.
Knights.
It was on console and PC. It was just all disaster.
Yeah, Gotham Knights was the one with the poorly received Red Hood, Nightwing, Batgirl, Robin game. Which, how the fuck do you screw that up? Tell me something. How do you screw that up?
Yeah,
You have an interesting plot where spoilers, you kill Batman before the game starts,
yeah.
and the game functions around all of these people that essentially Batman trained and are taking over as Batman, and somehow the game gets fucked up. It's whatever. It's just a shame. It's just a shame because it should have been a great game. It had a really interesting storyline to go off of, a world without Batman and people trying to take over and fill that void. So it's just a real shame that this game was screwed up. I don't know if it was just bad development. I don't know what happened, but yeah, it was poorly received and rightfully so.
Yeah. I remember.
It's just really unfortunate.
I think there was I don't know if it was an alpha or an open or if it was like a demo, whatever. I played it and I was less than an hour and I was done. I was like, nope.
Mhm.
And they discounted it down to like $10 within the first 6 months or something like that.
Yeah. Moving on though, the Spider-Man games, which Insomniac did. Insomniac games, it has a very, very good track record.
Yeah. Insomniac is huge. I love pretty much everything they've produced.
See, I would argue that I know Batman series, you said it could be arguably the best, adaptation from thing. I don't know if I think Spider-Man has a pretty good chance of
The thing though with Spider-Man is from Spider-Man 1 now, I'll be fair, I haven't touched Spider-Man 2 yet. It's on PC, officially launched on PC last month sometime, but I haven't touched it yet. I'll wait for a sale. And the reason why
Hmm.
I'm waiting for a sale is because the first game was freaking amazing. I had a blast
Yep.
playing it. The second
Yep.
game, from everything I've heard, is the same as the first game. So now we're just rinse and repeating and then adding in Miles Morris. And
Well,
okay, sure,
well,
so you
here's
add
the
in
thing.
another character, but everything else is the same. And that's what was cool
So,
about Batman is Batman changed. Every one of those first three games was a dynamic change to the main story, to the main,
okay.
you know,
I mean, that's
controls,
fair.
whatnot, added in, like Arkham Knight added in the freaking Batmobile for Christ's sake.
Okay, but that's fair. But I mean, you also sometimes what ain't broke, don't need to be fixed.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not
I,
arguing whether for or against. I think my biggest problem was, and I'm going to be completely honest here, and it may sound crappy of me, but like the Miles Morales game offended me because it was like a placeholder for Spider-Man 2
yeah,
and a way to introduce Miles Morales, which is great. But before I stick my foot in my mouth, let me double check. But I'm pretty sure didn't they sell Miles Morales as like a full price game, or am I misremembering?
I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, let me see.
Obviously I didn't have
Spider-Man.
PlayStation, so I waited for it all to come to PC. But like I said, I had a blast with the first one. I didn't play Miles Morris. Eventually, I will play Spider-Man 2, but not at the full price. I'll wait for $30 or so. I appreciate them bringing them over because I
Okay,
have been wanting
so
to play it.
it wasn't a full price game. It was $50, 49.99.
Oh, so
So I
pretty
guess that,
close.
but pretty close. And from my understanding, I believe Miles Morales, Miles Morales Spider-Man game was essentially just a slightly longer DLC.
Yeah, yeah.
Like like that's where I get like my offense from. That, and I feel like they were playing off people's excitement. Miles Morales has always been a popular character, especially towards ethnic groups, where it's like we finally get you know, our Black Spider-Man,
Yeah.
our ethnic group Spider-Man. And the fact that they kind of played off of that to stick like a $50 price tag on it is kind of offensive too, because
Well,
it's
they're
like,
they're also capitalizing on Spider-Man being hot again with, the Sony movies.
yeah, I know, but it's still one of those things where I feel like they should have represented, if they were going to release it at such a high price, it should have been a full standalone game to properly give the character proper full introduction, proper meaning. I don't know. Something about it rubs me wrong, I guess is what I'm going to say. And I don't want to get too deep into it because I don't want to start like an ethnical thing, a race thing. But like, I
On
just feel like
on
they should
the
have done something better with it.
on the note of Spider-Man, the Miles Morales two movies. I only saw the first one so far, but freaking amazing! One of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that they're really good. I still need to see them
They got a
because
Spider
every
Pig
time I
in
go,
there. That's amazing.
well, the thing is, I can't find where to watch them. And I have like a billion different services. Every time I get like a service, I think, okay, I can, surely stuff's gonna be on it, and then I go in and it's like, okay, it's not on there. So like, because they're not on. I haven't checked recently, but they're not on Disney. I don't think. Because
No,
granted,
they
there's
are
technically
Sony
Sony.
titles. I think they're
Okay.
on. Oh yeah, they're on Hulu and
Okay, I'll have to check Hulu then because I do have Hulu.
Hulu. It's just on Hulu.
I do. I am not. I'm not a super huge fan of that art style, but
I'm
given
not
how
either, but I had a
popular,
blast. It was cool.
yes. So I got to give it a try, and I plan on it. Moving on from there, there's Alien Isolation, which,
Freaking amazing,
yeah,
amazing
arguably one of
sequel
the
coming
best
out.
horror films of all time.
Hmm.
Not just the horror films, but Alien. And then the fact that the alien like evolved as you
Yeah,
played the game. Like if you hid under a table all the time, it would
someone's
eventually start
watching.
checking the table. Yeah, it was something innovative for its time, and
It sold extremely well for being a horror video game.
mhm.
It's one of the very few games that is based on a licensed IP that really nailed everything about it. The environments, the acting, the alien itself, everything about it was just spot on out of an alien movie.
Yeah, I'm just I'm not a big horror person. I did try to play it. I wasn't feeling the vibe, but it's probably because it was horror. But I do really appreciate what they did. I really appreciate the attention to detail. Like it's something where like even if you're not a fan of the genre, even if you're not a fan of the franchise, from just a outsider's perspective, you can appreciate what they did for the game, for the series, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about Middle Earth, Shadow of Mordor,
Yep.
and then the sequel of that as well. I'm not going to touch into
It's
it
a
too much,
shame.
but
Yeah,
the
it's a
first
shame
one,
we're not getting another one.
yeah, the first one is an amazing game. The second one was a bit of a rinse and repeat of the first one, very similar to Spider-Man 1 and 2, but still, fine. I'm sure, again, Spider-Man 2 will be great. GoldenEye,
Yeah,
I didn't, now, anything with N64, I'm going to have very little input on because I didn't have a 64 and I hated the control with a passion.
I loved it.
But
I loved it. I
GoldenEye,
loved GoldenEye.
supposed to be one of the hottest, best games
It
ever.
was. It was so good. It transcended being a movie title. It
Mm.
transcended being a franchise title. People knew more about GoldenEye than they knew about 007, I think. Like I didn't I think a lot of casual people played it and didn't even realize it was from a movie. And the 007 series has had a few games, some of them good, some of them bad. PlayStation had a few games, and a lot of them weren't very good, but I did have a few fun with. Oh man, now I'm forgetting the damn title. I think it was Tomorrow Never Dies. I think it was Tomorrow Never Dies, which was the one movie that had Pierce Brosnan and I believe Michelle Yao. I can't remember her last name.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it was that one, and I thought that was a pretty decent one. It was either that one or World Is Not Enough. I can't remember which one, but they were okay. They were okay games. They were playable, but were they amazing? No, but GoldenEye was an amazing game. It just period.
Yeah, it's everything I've heard about it is supposed to be an amazing game. Now, did you play the Incredible Hulk game?
I did not. I was never a fan of the Incredible Hulk. I wasn't a huge comic book person outside of the X-Men for the longest time, so
Okay,
I
but
missed a lot of that stuff.
it was an incredible game. So the coolest thing about it, think of it as remember the early days of Battlefield where everything was destructive. That's what the Hulk was. Hulk smash. You'd take down buildings. You would take cars and throw it at your enemies. It was just a massive destruction thing, but it was so well done. I had a lot of fun. I just run around as Hulk and smash everything. I wouldn't even play the
Yeah.
game, just smashing things.
I mean
good
that
time.
that's that's what, and to be fair, that's what it should have been. It
Oh yeah,
reminds me,
they didn't take itself too serious.
yeah. I mean that's it makes me it surprises me that we haven't gotten a lot of Godzilla games because for that very same reason of like
The ones that
all
come
you
out are
really
just
need
so
to do.
awful.
Oh yeah, it's like it's a shame that they can't just be like, look, just make a Godzilla game where you control one of the damn monsters and you're fucking destroying shit, and then you occasionally fight another monster. I mean, how hard is that?
Yeah. Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters, which is
Oh
your thing.
man, Ghostbusters. I think Ghostbusters might have been the first game that I actually waited in line to purchase. And it was actually it wasn't at GameStop, back then when it came out in 2009. But I got off work at 6 a.m. and headed over to the local Walmart. I rode a bike in the middle of, I think it was wintertime when it was launched or wherever, early spring. Either way, I remember being snow on the ground. And went there and waited, walked around and waited for it to eventually be placed on the shelf so I could buy it. But I had a blast. I played that game probably 4 times through, and it was remastered not too long ago for Steam, and it holds up extremely well. And it's in a lot of people's eyes, it's the third movie.
Yeah, and next is so Mad Max. I another series that I wasn't really big
Man,
into.
that's a freaking
I heard the
amazing game.
Yeah, I heard the game was really good.
Yeah.
That it kind of came out of nowhere, right? Like
Yeah.
no one was expecting it,
Yeah.
and certainly wasn't expecting it to be good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. It was, you would be Max and you're driving around your piece of crap vehicle and you're taking out enemies. It's just an open world. It's an open, think of it as the Shadow of Mordor kind of games, but in Mad Max world. It's
Yeah,
well done. I played through that twice.
they're the company that did the Just Cause series, and there are people who like Just Cause really seem to like Just Cause, so they at least have some experience with those styles of games.
It was well done. Well done.
Mhm.
Knights
Now,
of the Old
this is-
Republic. We've mentioned
now
this
this
one
is
a couple
kinda mine.
times. Yep.
Oh yeah,
This
Knights of the Old
was
Republic.
a very good, super successful. Still waiting on a remastered version of it, if it's ever
Oh,
going to
God.
happen.
I'm scared to death of it because
Yeah.
considering all the developmental hell that it's going through, anyone who's knows, when it comes to movies and video games, when you go through, we announced this game, suddenly the game's not really doing anything, or it's not coming out, or it's been stalled.
Yeah.
Now we're changing dev teams. Now we have to start from the ground up. It's like, they're gonna fuck it up.
Yeah, and that's always the scary part with any of these kind of things is
Star Wars in general had a very hit and mix history. Fallen
there was
Order, fantastic game.
yeah.
Survivor, not as good from what I've heard. I haven't played it. I've heard a
Actually,
lot of people didn't like it as much.
I like the story more.
That's
The
great.
combat was about the same, but the
Yeah.
story I felt was even better. It's a twisted story.
But yeah, Star Wars has had a mixed bag over the years. I mean, they've had some really good ones, and then they've had some stinkers. So
Mhm. Yeah. So we mentioned, Fallen Order. We talked about Knights of the Republic, and then to have a nice, fun, hysterical moment is Simpsons Hit and Run. So think of Grand Theft Auto, but in the Simpsons
with
world.
The Simpsons, yeah, that one's kind of almost like a cult hit in a
Oh,
way, because
yeah.
like you wouldn't hear anyone talk about it until like recently, over the last couple of years. Everyone's like, "Oh no, fucking Simpsons Hit and Run, great game!" Like it was like, really, no one really cared about it originally, or at least not super publicly. But then it's like you hear so much, like people go back and like think about it and be like how much they really enjoyed that game, and it's like, it was interesting. I oddly enough never really got into The Simpsons, despite how long of a series it is. I watched, I don't know, probably up to 6, 7, maybe even 8 seasons. And the only ones I really remember are the first couple, which seems to be the ones that everyone still loves the most. So take that for what you will. And now we're up to like season 400, 500,
Crazy.
something like that.
The Simpsons is older than my wife.
Jesus Christ. That's
My wife, we have an 8-year age gap in there, but that's incredible to think about. The Simpsons is 3 years older than me.
oh man.
I mean, or sorry,
how,
3 years younger than me. 3 years younger than me.
how old is The Simpsons?
36 seasons.
Oh God. Well, it's not older than me. It's not
That's
older than me and my
wild.
wife.
That is wild to
But
think, though.
it's damn close. I
Yeah.
mean, that's wow. That's amazing.
And there's no signs of it ending.
Yeah. I guess a lot of those old sitcom shows, the thing that bothers me now that I'm a grown up is I wish that they aged. Like, I think that's really
Oh,
the
the
only thing that
characters?
yeah, like they don't have to do massive ages, right? Like
I
they don't have to
think
do like a
this-
massive thing.
I exempt The Simpsons from it. I feel The Simpsons should be exempt because think about it. It's only 20-minute episodes, and and there's 24 hours in a day. So in real life, 36 seasons is like, I don't know, 10 years. In 10
I
years, you
mean,
don't age that much.
that's not really fair to say, because they're all like the kids.
Well, okay, fair.
You know, once you
They'd
pass
be
21,
teenagers.
once you pass 21, you don't age
Okay.
that much.
Hold
but
hold on to this, because when the not King of Queens, when the King of Hill series is rebooted here, they aged
yeah,
them.
that's true.
Let's
Yep, that's
see,
true.
because if that turns out to be crap, then we'll be like, well, Simpsons are right.
Well, to be fair, it's only going to turn out to be crap if the writers are bad, and if they brought back all the
They brought
original
back a lot of the
writers,
original stuff. A lot of it's
so
original.
that it should theoretically be good, unless the series itself doesn't age well with time. So
Well, yeah.
we'll see. The Witcher,
We've
you and I
talked
have
about a
talked
billion
about.
times. We're not going to really dive into it too much
I almost feel like we've probably mentioned The Witcher in almost every podcast, almost.
because that's an amazing game.
Yeah, the franchise, really. I mean, I still think 1 and 2 are great as well.
Yeah.
Does one?
I can't wait
is
for the
one-
remastered.
Yeah, one is one finally pretty outdated? Yes, but then they're going to remaster it.
Yeah.
I'd argue 2 isn't all that isn't that far behind 3. Like I think
Yeah.
they'll probably eventually remaster 2 as well.
Yeah,
But-
once one is out, and if it's as successful as they hope, obviously they need to have something between Witcher 3 and 4, and
Yep.
4 has probably got a couple years to go.
Oh, yeah.
So having 1 come out will be a nice filler, and then launch 2 after that, because then they'll have the engine working and all that jazz. Because I think they're using the Unreal Engine for the remake of Witcher 1, which Witcher 4 is using the Unreal Engine as well, which is a change from their what's it called? Project Red Engine, or the Red Engine,
yeah,
it's called.
something like that.
So
I just
it's
know that
big move for them.
I do wish that they would talk more about it, because when they came out and they announced Witcher 4 and showed off that trailer, and that was amazing and all.
They
but
did
I
have
kind of wish
They had a behind the scenes come out last week, I think it
Did
was.
they?
Yeah, there was something that
I
came out.
had not seen that. All right, cool. And
It
now
showed a
Metro,
different angle of Ciri. So people were pissed off that Ciri looks different, but there's a different angle now, so she looks much closer to what we know as Ciri. Just age a little bit.
Okay. Now Metro, this is something I guess you would know more about. I've never played the series.
Oh,
I
man,
started
Metro.
to. I started to, and I forgot what had happened. Something had happened, and I just put it off, and I said, all right, you know what? This series deserves me to take an actual proper time to really play it. So let me come back to it when it's more suitable for me.
So Metro is one of the first games that Metro Exodus, I think it is, whatever the newest one is one of the first games that had ray tracing, the gimmick of ray tracing. I'm using the word gimmick too, because that's what it is. But Metro did it right, because it made the shadows really pop. It made it even scarier to go through the world, if your system at least could handle ray tracing, at least when it came out. And yeah, that's one of the few games I also played twice, just because it was just an amazing experience.
Before we jump into the bad section, so I didn't add any.
Let's take a
titles
moment
to
of
this.
silence
Oh, fucking Christ.
before Mark rages.
No. Well, because here's the thing. I could have added anime titles as well, and I thought about it, but I was like, I wasn't sure how I wanted to handle it. I don't know if anime titles should get its own show, or if we should just compilate it into something, because there's the Dragon Ball games, the Dragon Ball Z fighter games. Naruto has had quite a few fighting games. One Piece, and then there's tons of either gacha games, mobile games that have had some kind of like anime tie-in, and then there's just other anime that just have straight up like fighting game adaptations or whatever. So I wasn't sure how to handle that. So
Yeah.
that could be something that we discuss later and decide if we want to just do its own little like topic, because there's not just one genre. Depending on the type of anime that it was adapting, you could be getting a visual novel, you could be getting like just just gotcha tie-ins, and then a lot of the times with the anime games, a lot of times it's usually like derivative to like a fighting game. Especially those big popular shonen shows, your Demon Slayers, your My Hero Academias, Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, even JoJo, I believe, got a fighting game that was pretty decent, but it was still just a fighting game. So it's one of those things where maybe when we like have a show about fighting games, where I'll bring that up then instead, because anime was so diversified, but the genre types really kind of just broke down to either a fighting based RPG, a fighting game in general, or a visual novel. So they were kind of like not super diverse. You didn't get a lot of like, I guess open story driven games or survival games or horror games or this or that. Like, so that one's a discussion for down the road.
Yeah.
But just figured I'd make a note as to why anime titles weren't included in this.
Sure. So to preface this, these are going to be not games that are just bad games, that they're just garbage. These are some of the worst video games known to mankind. Okay? Known to mankind. And I know anyone who is into video games, like knowledgeable enough into video games, knows of at least one of these titles before you even say it, because it is one of the biggest flops in the history of video games that changed the entire industry going forward. And we'll touch on that here in a moment. But these are just really bad games, and they're all licensed IP titles. So,
Hooray!
Mark, do you want to start off with number one?
No. No.
Also, to rephrase this, through our list here, I only played 2 of these games.
I don't think I've played. I think I've played one. Well, no, I can't say that because I'm old enough to have played an Atari. So we do have an Atari game on here. Everyone already knows what the title is just by hearing the word Atari.
And that's the game we're talking about. But we're starting off with which one, Mark?
Superman 64, the wonderful, wonderful game where you fly through rings and not even fly well.
The controls were so bad. It was very difficult to control. Sometimes when you're trying to go down to the ground, you wouldn't be able to get down to the ground. Sometimes you're trying to pick things up. It'd be like, oh, I didn't know you were trying to pick that up. It was just a complete, utter disaster of a game. And it went through development hell because it was initially launched at E3, and then they're like, hey, we're going to launch it on this day. Oh, by the way, we only have like 70% of the game done, so we still have to get more done. So we're going to push it back a little bit. Oh, hey, just checking in. Yeah, we're going to launch now about a year later. Well, I guess it was a few months later. And we still got like 10% of the game to work on. So we'll touch back with you soon. And then they finally launch it.
So here's the question. You're making a Superman game. Why are you flying through rings? Huh? What the fuck?
Rage alert.
The Superman game is one of those games where if you really just dislike somebody, just give them that game. Yeah. Just gift them that game. If you had a bad breakup and your ex-lover or person has shamed you or hurt you in any ways, and they play video games, give them that game. You're like, I was thinking about you. Here you go. With love. That's the kind of game that you give someone you really don't like, just because you want them to experience even an ounce of pain and suffering. Just give them Superman 64, and that's pretty much. Here's a good. That's another good thing. If you want to break up with someone and you don't want to say it, if you don't want to say I don't want to be with you anymore, give them Superman 64. That is the best way you could break up with somebody that you could ever do. Just this is what I think about our relationship and going forward. Here you go, and then you open it up. Oh, I wonder what this is. Superman 64. Wait, does that mean you don't love me anymore? I've never loved you. Get out of my life. That's Superman 64.
Another game that, this one crashed the entire video game industry. And there was a documentary that came out not so long ago about it, is, of course, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. That was launched on the Atari 2600.
In 1983, the year I was born.
There were so many additional games made, or that was still preserved, I should say, that they buried them. They buried video games because they didn't know what to do with them.
A landfill.
Of thousands of copies of E.T.
I remember somebody recording themselves. I think it was like early YouTube, like the early stages of YouTube. I remember seeing a video of like someone who actually went to the known location of that burial site to see if it was true,
Yeah.
and like started digging and found, the copies, and was like, oh shit, this is true. So yeah, a game's got to be bad when they just bury them. They didn't even try to incinerate these things. They were just like, we're just gonna the fire and the effort to put these games through a fire and burn them isn't worth it. We're just gonna put them in the dirt.
Yeah, it was a game that I did not touch. One, because I wasn't even born yet, but had no interest in touching
Thank you.
down the road. The Walking Dead Survival Instinct.
See, I didn't even remember this was a thing. The only Walking Dead I remember were the massively popular, successful
So this
Telltale
one
games.
is a game I didn't touch either, but is a game that was so generic and bland that you wouldn't even know you were playing a Walking Dead game, because all it was just some random zombies. I don't think it even had any of the main cast involved with it. No, correction. There was the main characters from the show were in it, but it was so generic of a game that there was just nothing unique about it, and it was so repetitive. And the story, the story was about Daryl's father, and they were trying to go rescue him or something. I can't remember exactly, but something around those lines. Yeah, it was so awful, so awful.
And now next is Iron Man. I didn't even know they had a video game. I thought they were. I knew I had heard they were making a VR game, but I didn't know they had a
Yeah, so
another game.
this came out when the movie came out back in 2008, and I played it. This is one of the few games that I did play, and it was just as bad as everyone knows. It was a tie-in movie one, and those are always just god awful.
Yeah, they're usually pretty bad.
Yeah, just terrible. The biggest thing with this one is, just like Superman, the controls were just terrible. And it kind of reminded me of, think of like those awful RPG games where it's like the same boring side quest. Oh, go to this location and retrieve this item. Go to this location, retrieve this item. Go to this location. It's the same exact thing over and over and over again. It didn't feel like an Iron Man game. It was terrible.
So, the next one's an Aliens game. So I didn't know much about this one, other than that, like, Gearbox, who is a pretty damn good company, made this game. So you would think that, surely this game isn't gonna suck.
Well, the biggest issue was that the AI was just terrible. Just terrible. It was super short length, and the graphics for the time, it came out in 2013. So at this time, graphics were kind of at the peak, and it was based on the Unreal Engine. So it was around the time that the Arkham games came out, and Arkham looked freaking amazing for its time, and it even looks, to this day, it looks pretty good. But the biggest overall issue was that the AI was just so awful with this title.
It's just, I don't know, like,
It was
how
so
do you give a
it was so bad that
give
there
a
was a
game to
class action
Gearbox?
lawsuit that was filed because of false advertisement.
Well, how do you give a game to Gearbox and them not do a good game? Like, it feels like there was something,
Probably
like,
rushed.
was there? Yeah, the only thing I can think of, right? Because like Gearbox usually does a good job. Speaking of but speaking of shitty games, I didn't know they made a Thor game. Like, I never heard of it. I didn't know it existed.
Thor, God
I've
of
seen-
Thunder.
I mean, I don't think it looks that bad for a PlayStation 1 game. Oh, it's PlayStation 3.
Okay, here's how bad
Ooh.
on now, this obviously this isn't a game website, but IMDb out of 462 reviews, it's 2.3 out of 10. So if that tells you anything of how bad this title is. Now, this is a game that I did not play either. But but it's supposed to be a game that was similar to the Star Wars Unleashed titles, just not even close to the quality.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of bad quality, hey, look, Catwoman, a game based off of a awful, terrible, massively bombed movie, makes a terrible, awful game. Man, who would have thought that had happened, huh?
I remember seeing this one, and again, this is just like another movie tie-in kind of thing, but this, I guess not really. This is a kind of separate thing. But anyways, I remember seeing the initial trailer for this and thinking, how in the world did anyone get approval at Warner Brothers to push this out?
I love the fact that they used Halle Berry's like model, but then they had Jennifer Hale, who is a white woman.
Yeah.
Fantastic voice actors, by the way.
Yeah.
Female Shepherd, to name one of her big roles. Like, she's a great voice actress, but Halle Berry's likeness on even in 2004, you could see kind of like some issues there with like you use a black woman and you have a white girl voice her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of a bad tactic there, in my opinion.
Jaws Unleashed, 2006. You play as a shark. The controls apparently were awful, and the gameplay was terrible. So, I just want to add. I'm going to add this a little bit of glimmer of hope here, because as bad as this game apparently was, a game that I did not play, and I'm guessing Mark didn't play either. It was a not too long ago game that was released that you play as a shark, as a Jaws, pretty much.
Maneater.
Yeah, and it's freaking awesome. It's a fun, just lose your mind and go kill people. It was great.
I was going to say that. I was going to be like, look, like Jaws, terrible game, but it was also based off a movie, which is already going to be hard enough to make a game where you're playing as the damn shark.
Yeah.
And make it like something that you should be playing. I mean, they also had a game back in '87 on the Nintendo with one of those kind of famously terrible companies, LGN. Whenever you saw the LGN title or the company on your Nintendo or Super Nintendo or Sega game, you knew you were in for a shit-tastic time. I don't speak. I don't have quite the as good of a vocal range as Video Game Nerd does when it comes to those games. But if you want to know how people feel about those games, go watch the Angry Video Game Nerd. He'll pretty much tell you how the general populace feels about LGN titles, and that being Jaws being one of them. So so Jaws never had a good game, which is not hard to believe when you're playing the role of the shark that's killing people as your lead character in a video game. Whereas at least with Maneater, you don't have an attachment to the humans.
It was a super unserious game, and that's what made it great.
Super quirky, super silly game, and that's kind of what you want when you're playing as a shark. You just running around and chomping on things. It's like if you make a Jurassic Park game where you're playing as the dinosaurs. All you got to do is give us the freaking T-Rex or whatever dinosaur, and let us go wild eating shit. No brainer.
The Exorcist VR game. Now this could be if they would have taken the same thing like Alien. I know Exorcist would be a lot harder to do. Retain the concept of Alien, make it very spooky and scary. It could have been a really, really good game. It's a game that I was looking forward to when it was first announced. And I never touched it because of all the reviews. But apparently it's boring and just super, super glitchy.
Early VR too probably doesn't help either.
Yeah, 2018, we're talking 7 years ago of VR, and VR was kind of just starting to make its way into the general public. I don't even think that the Quest stuff was even relevant at the time. Maybe the first Quest came out somewhere around that time, but obviously it was a very early version of the Quest. VR titles in general are a tough sell because you have such a small amount of people interested in VR, and with even those who are interested, only a small fraction of those who can actually play the games without getting sick. And I'm one of those people.
Yeah, I've never. I'm still waiting, right? Like I'm still waiting for VR, and we're gonna have a show on VR
Yeah.
sooner than
We're
later.
bringing back our
And
guest host from our MMO
the
episode.
MMO, yeah, because he's a big VR advocate.
Although he's kind
And
of
here's the thing,
falling off of the VR wagon a little bit. It's interesting.
I think. Well, yeah, that's stuff that we can talk about off the recording. But I do like VR. I do like where it's going. I could only play it for a very limited time. I wear glasses, and I have yet to find a VR device that is very suitable for glasses. Now you have VR stuff that you can get your prescription lenses, like you can get a lens and put it in there. But to me, like I'm waiting for technology to come out where you can just put it on with your glasses, because it's kind of not fair when you're buying a $400-$500 device to have to chip in another $75 to $100 or whatever, depending on your prescription.
I can use the Quest 2 with my glasses. I don't, because I don't need it, but I can, and you can't though.
I couldn't.
I
At
suppose
least
our
not
faces
comfortably.
all matter. Like I have a smaller,
Yeah.
thinner, more like a egg shape face.
Like I could. So here's the thing. I tried and I could make it work, but it was uncomfortable. Like the way the headset would fit with my glasses would have the piece that goes over your nose kind of dig down.
Okay.
And that's the thing is like I would be too focused on my glasses bothering me to focus on the VR. And I
Sure.
tried it again with the Quest 3. The Quest 3 is also a little bit more manageable, but it just doesn't feel right. VR technology is getting there and it's improving. I can use the Quest 3 longer than I could the Quest 2. I could use the Quest 2 longer than I could the Quest 1. So it's getting there. And I'm sure, and I know there's other devices out there that are coming out or are out that are just way more expensive, unfortunately, that maybe kind of fix some of those issues. But when you want to get to the point where you want to make VR readily available for people, the technology still being as expensive as it is, and then not really being super 100% suitable for all audiences, aka people who wear glasses, who is a very big, number of people in the world, I'm sure. I don't have a number on that, but it's something that's got to happen sooner or later, where it's like, okay, we need to make this headset. Now we've evolved the technology. Technology's better. This is better. That's better. Now let's make the headset itself work for everybody, including people with glasses on, or maybe they have like certain issues with their eyes or whatever. So I think it's coming. I think we're getting there. I just don't think it's there yet. But that's a whole nother thing.
Yep, we had a whole episode dedicated to VR.
Yep. I did want to add one quick small thing that I wish we had said on the good games list, because we did mention the Middle Earth games. The direct tie-in from a movie was the third movie in the trilogy. Oh, I know they did a Two Towers one as well.
Oh yeah,
which I think, but the Return of the King, Two Towers and Return of the King were actually very good, very fun games that were direct tie-ins from their film. As a matter of fact, at the time, I'm not going to say still is, Return of the King was the best movie adapted game I had ever played.
Yeah, I could believe that.
Yeah, but that's all I forgot to add. But yeah, licensed titles, that's always going to be a thing. And eventually we'll get people will figure shit out, and, hopefully we'll start seeing more quality games over terrible games, just to get that IP out there, just to be like, oh, look, this is based off of a franchise. I didn't add the Transformers games. I could have added the Transformers games, but those are very hit and miss.
Yeah.
There are a couple really, really good games, and then a lot that are very, very bad.
The thing though with those games is that they're not great games, but they're not as awful as the games on the list here.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron are fantastic games, but unfortunately they had a third game that was more based off of the Michael Bay films that was terrible. Transformers Devastation, fantastic game, but is also not well remembered, even though it was more based off of the G1 cartoon, as in it took direct animate, like not animation, but they used the art from G1. It was stylized G1. They even brought back a lot of the original voice actors that were still alive to play these characters. But it was just a fun little short little beat 'em up. So that's why it doesn't stand in a lot of people's memories, unfortunately. But yeah, that's enough. That was just something I missed too. But it is neither here or there.
Well, as always, thanks everyone for watching, listening to our episode. This is the second episode that's on our new dedicated YouTube channel. And of course, so thanks for watching. You can always find us easily on YouTube by just typing in Pixel Realms, either Pixel Realms Podcast or just Pixel Realms, and we should pop up one of the first things on there. The channel directly is youtube.com/Pixel Realms Podcast.
Yep. And if you want to get a hold of us, I mean, Joe has his own personal YouTube channel, as do I. I think we link them, or at least mention them in our in the community section, the profile section, right, Joe? Isn't there like something that mentions us?
I don't think so, but we should probably do that. Let's go to
Yeah, probably. So if it hasn't, then it will be. Teehee. But yeah. Yep. But anyways, as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Take care.
Bye.